Welcome back to another video. I continue the work on my new house, building the frame. Getting to the actual topic at hand though, the era of the trillion-dollar tech monopolies treating your personal computer like a heavily monitored advertising terminal is coming to an end and is not going well for them. For the last 2 years, we have been lying in what the internet has effectively called the AI slop era. We have watched massive corporations take the software and operating systems that we rely on every single day and completely ruin them by forcibly injecting artificial intelligence into every possible crevice. They told us that it was the future. They told us that having a chatbot read our emails, scan through our personal files, and do even more on our computers was an inevitable occurrence. It was a technological revolution that we just had to accept. We saw operating systems evolve from basic tools that respected our hardware into bloated, constantly connected surveillance networks. These companies, they want us to fundamentally change the definition of a personal computer, turning your incredibly expensive private hardware into a data harvesting node for their big servers. They thought that we would just quietly consume the slop that they served us, accept the degraded performance that comes with all this AI stuff, and surrender our digital privacy for the sake of corporate profit margins. But today, the narrative is definitely different. The tech giants, they just pushed too far, and the internet has finally pushed back. We are currently witnessing the most embarrassing, catastrophic public relation disaster in modern tech history. Today, we are breaking down the absolute collapse of the Microslop monopoly. We're going to look at the forced updates that broke the community's trust, the legendary corporate meltdown that resulted in a trillion-dollar company trying to censor its very own users, and why this massive pushback definitely proves that the human, authentic internet personality is finally beginning to win the war against the corporate slop onslaught. To understand why this massive corporate collapse is happening literally right now, we have to look at how we actually got to this point. For years, the foundational rule of personal computing was ownership. When you built a computer or bought a laptop from a store, the operating system was literally just the background tool or infrastructure that allowed you to run your own programs and do your own tasks. But recently, that social contract was violently destroyed. The introduction of invasive, non-removable artificial intelligence features into the core architecture of our daily operating systems was a catalyst for this entire collapse, this entire rebellion. Companies stopped treating us like customers and instead started treating us like unpaid beta testers for their generative data models. We saw a rollout of features that literally took automated screenshots of your own desktop every few seconds to build a searchable database of your entire digital life. They forced persistent AI assistant buttons onto our taskbars, injected machine learning bloatware into basic text editors and file explorers, and started serving targeted advertisements directly inside the system menus that we use to turn off our machines or find apps and things like that. This was more than a simple annoyance. It is a fundamental degradation of the user experience. People started realizing that their high-end, powerful, amazing, beautiful machines were suddenly running slower, running hotter, and using more background memory just to power corporate spyware that absolutely nobody asked for. The slop, it was no longer just contained to social media feeds or bad search engine results. It was starting to enter the perimeter of the personal computer itself and the OS. The tech industry completely underestimated the sacred relationship that users have with their own hardware. They assumed that we, the consumer, were entirely captive, but they forgot that consumer patience has a very hard limit. That brings us to the actual turning point, which is quite literally one of the funniest and most satisfying corporate meltdowns in the history of the internet, in my opinion. The frustration had been building for months, but the dam finally broke when the public officially rebranded the company responsible for all this mess as Microslop. It was the perfect nickname that captured the exact feeling of being force-fed unwanted low-effort corporate software and bloat. And instead of ignoring it or taking the criticism to heart, the executives made the worst possible mistake that you can possibly make on the internet. They let the world know that the nickname bothered them. while corporate leadership, publicly, pleaded with the users to stop using like this term to describe their flagship artificial intelligence products, like it acted as like a massive beacon to every single damn troll and commenter and frustrated user on the web. It triggers the ultimate stray sand effect. Almost overnight, Microslop went from like a niche like joke online to the single most dominant phrase in the tech commentary sphere. Like the word began like trending like globally. But the true climax of this disaster really happened when the company's official like community like moderators completely lost their minds and decided to actively ban the word from their official like Discord servers. Like pretty much what they did, they implemented automated chat filters that would instantly like delete your message and warn your account if you even dare to type the word. They tried to use like brute force censorship to protect $1 trillion corporate ego, and it backfired beautifully with spectacular, devastating like precision. The moment that the community realized that typing a single word could trigger like an automated corporate panic, it was like game over. Like users immediately like deployed every single bypass tactic in the book. They use like numbers instead of letters. They decide to space out like the characters. They use alternative like alphabets and spellings, and they flooded the official channels with an unrelenting like wave of mockery. Like the moderation team was completely overwhelmed by thousands of users actively like breaking the filters even faster than they could like update them. The situation like deteriorated so rapidly the moderators were like even like forced to restrict the channels, like lock down the community, and essentially shut down their very own official communication hubs in absolute disgrace. A company that builds global enterprise infrastructure was literally like bullied into total submission by teenagers like typing like Microslop in a chat room, like a Discord server. But this was not just like a funny internet moment because it represents like a massive high stakes financial nightmare for the industry. This level of brand toxicity has real world consequences. Like we are seeing user adoption rates for these brand new AI, enhanced operating system and technologies completely flatlining and even going down. People are outright like refusing to update their machines. We're seeing a massive like resurgence in people downloading like open source operating systems like Linux, for example, and also hoarding older versions of like software, for example, like Windows, and using like deep level registry edits and other tweaks to rip the corporate tracking tools out of their computers and their OS by the roots. Hardware partners are like even getting nervous because they're realizing that slapping an AI sticker on a new computer is no longer a selling point. Like it is now a massive red flag for consumers who are absolutely exhausted by all this slop. The financial bubble surrounding these forced like integration is beginning to burst because the companies have completely alienated the power users who actually drive the market trends and are like very important. This entire situation is the ultimate validation of victory that I've often talked about on this channel. Like pretty much the collapse of this whole like Microslop narrative like proves that tech monopolies are like not invincible. Like they spent billions of dollars trying to convince us that like a sanitized AI generated constantly like monitored digital like OS in existence was like the new path forward. Like they thought that they could hold like our digital like privacy and lives hostage because they own the operating systems. But the thing is they severely like miscalculated the power of a decentralized unified Unibase. That the internet has finally developed like an immune response to the surveillance state. Like we have experienced like the subscription fatigue, like we've survived like the death of the internet, AI slop, all of that, and we have suffered through like the peak of the artificial intelligence hype cycle. But right now we're witnessing like the human comeback and this whole AI slop collapse. Like the fact that a community can like literally force like a tech giant to lock down like its own servers and even walk back its like aggressive tracking features is definitive proof that social consent still matters. Like the dead internet era, like I've said, it's definitely coming to an end because we are like actively choosing to reject like the bloatware, the corporate mandates, and all of that. Like we are reclaiming our hardware and our digital privacy, and like we're just moving forward to a new era and laughing at all the bad actors out of the room. Like the villains of the tech industry, they thought that they could serve as a slop forever, but the era of corporate control is definitely like breaking down. Like it's a very good day to online, and once again I always say this, but I want to hear from you guys in the comments if you have any thoughts about this topic, anything crazy to let me know. And yeah, I will see you next time.